Okay. I haven't done a PowerPoint presentation in a while. I was a Scoutmaster for a Scouts BSA troop, and I got to delve into it then. But what I realized then was kids don't use PowerPoint anymore. So I am seriously dating myself by doing PowerPoint, but I have it all set up for that. I'm going to, Gabby, everything okay back there? Okay, I'm going to minimize the thumbnail again. And if I need to find Zoom again, just remind me to open it. Okay. Yep, we're still on the beginning. So for those that don't know me personally, my name is Lisa, and genealogy has been a hobby of mine for over 30 years. My father and then my husband were both in the military, so I grew up and lived across the United States and around the world, far from extended family for most all my life. And genealogy has served as a way for me to connect with my family. Advance the slide. Not advancing the slide. Okay. Clicking with a mouse is going to work. Okay. I started working on my personal genealogy back when I was visiting family history centers, public libraries, civil record repositories, and genealogy societies. That was the norm back in the day. I would spend hours combing through documents and old newspapers and scrolling through microfilm and microfiche. And along with this, of course, was the need to create family group sheets and take notes by hand with a pen and a pencil. Genealogical research has come such a long way since then, with the ability to view digital copies of most of those resources online. I began utilizing online resources such as Cindy's List in 1996 when it started, and that connected me with local historical societies and not so local historical societies that could reach out across the United States, county records, and genealogical forums. In 2017, Family Search began transitioning its entire collection of physical records to digital records with free online access, an enormous project that was only completed in 2021. Today, a multitude of online sites continue to add additional documents and images to their database, making the world a much smaller place for genealogists. So there's my introduction. As personal genealogists, many of us have become the custodians of our family's records, books, and photos. And digitizing those original documents as digital copies makes them easier to access, to organize, to study, to protect, and perhaps most importantly, to share with your family and future generations. This evening's presentation is to highlight the CZUR Book Scanner, an innovative device that produces clear images of bound material and can quickly scan flat documents and create searchable PDFs for sharing. This is a CZUR ET16 Plus book scanner. It's the one that's in the picture. And physically, it resembles a modern table lamp. It consists of a horizontal arm with a camera and overhead lights, a vertical arm with a slot to attach offset lights. And those offset lights can reduce the glare. And a base that uses an interface that includes a manual scan button and a connection port for USB for connecting to the computer, which I've already set all that up here this evening. And also, even though I'm not sure I'm going to use it, a foot pedal, which frees up both hands for scanning. And anybody that's seen me scan the smaller clippings or the index cards or even the pages over in the Humble House knows that I get going so fast, sometimes I overscan things. So the foot pedal's my favorite part of this whole thing, I think. Okay, and there's the short list. That was one extra click. The CZUR is used with a black pad that provides a neutral background, as well as the scanning boundaries for the scanning area. Scanning can be initialized with a click on the computer. It can be the scan button on the base of the scanner itself. By utilizing the foot pedal, which is, as I said, what I far and away prefer, because I like to be able to lay down, scan, remove, and replace all in one fell swoop. And when scanning actual books, bound materials, there is also a setting for auto detect, which detects that you've turned a page and it automatically makes a scan. I found that it helps to get a really good rhythm if you're scanning a book and you're turning the pages. And it turns out I have no rhythm. I don't dance and I don't play the drums. And that apparently extends all the way to books. So again, I just use that foot pedal and mash it away while I'm turning pages. The CZUR scanner is specifically designed to efficiently digitize bound materials with minimal distortion, thanks to its patented curve flattening technology, using laser measurements and image software that automatically corrects the curve distortion of a book. And because of this, CZUR is optimized to capture text images, and it is typically much, much faster than a traditional flatbed scanner. It is also a very efficient way of scanning flat documents. For example, newspaper articles, vital records, correspondence, and recipe cards. Although the CZUR does some things better than other scanners, in case anyone is starting to wonder if the CZUR might be your solution to scanning in years of photographs, in my experience, it's not. I've done a few trials. I look forward to doing more experimentation with it, but it is primarily a documents scanner, a book scanner, and it doesn't have the robust capabilities that you would get from a flatbed scanner for photographs. So, but there are ways you can still utilize it with your photos. CZUR scanning speed is fast. As a comparison, the Epson Perfection V19, which is the flatbed scanner that is available in the Humble House, takes 10 seconds to scan a letter-sized document at 300 dots per inch, or 30 seconds at the much higher resolution of 600 dots per inch. 300 dots per inch is the minimum you'd want for a photo. 600 is great for a photo. Simple documents you can do with lower dots per inch, but basically you're stuck with that 10-second scan speed on a flatbed scanner. Anybody want to take a guess on how fast the CZUR is to do a similar scan? How far?
0.8 of a second.
Oh, that's optimistic, but it is still fast. Good guess. It does it in 1.5 seconds.
Wow.
Now, so that's, not a tenth, but a small portion of what a flatbed scanner takes. But if you take into consideration that is basically one scan, when I lay down index cards or multiple articles, small clippings, it's still scanning it that fast and processing it on a good computer almost that fast. So I'm getting a multitude of scans in 1.5 seconds, which is why, like I said, I was starting to go, oh, let's see how fast we can go. I probably could become a card dealer in Las Vegas now. So, okay. Using the auto detection settings on CZUR, I was able to put one sheet of standard paper or a large clipped article on the scanning mat every few seconds. And when scanning smaller clippings or index cards, I could comfortably lay down, scan, and remove up to a dozen clippings or 9 index cards in as many seconds. In comparison to a flatbed scanner, that's lightning fast. The CZUR scanner can scan sizes up to A3 size. I had to look that up. I don't think I've ever used A3 paper. It turns out it is 16.5 inches by 11.7 inches high. For comparison, that is about the same size as a large bound atlas, which is 15 by 11 inches. We're almost twice the width of 2 standard pieces of paper put side by side if they're regular papers, which clearly fit. Books can be up to 2.96 inches thick, or 1.96 inches thick. They should just say almost 2 inches there. So you can do fairly thick books. And so I picked a picture that has a fairly robust looking size book on it. And I did indeed use it with a family Bible, which exceeded their 1.96, and it took beautiful pictures of, my marriages and information in the front of the family Bible. The scan resolution is 4608 by 3456. That was kind of just a number to me as well. And so I counted out how many dots per inch I would have to see what the minimum, what I needed for a photograph was. It turns out CZUR says it's 250 dots per inch. So if you're working with photos and you want to enlarge a photo in general, you want to see the photo. Most old photos are small. Most of the time you want to enlarge them. 300 dots per inch, 250 dots per inch, not enough to enlarge it and maintain any clarity. That's the biggest reason. And the processing software, how the algorithm handles photographs, whatever it does, it's not the most robust photo scanner. But that being said, I did scan some photo albums at home. I have some from the 1920s that are literally the front of it's off. My husband's great grandmother is an infant in these books, and her parents are, have pictures in these books. And the black pages are leaving little pieces of black on my table every time I touch these books. So knowing that we're going to have to take out those photos and scan them properly, they have to be deglued from the paper, but doing it properly, I took scans of the pages themselves, large formats, a very large ledger style photo album. I took pictures of the pages as they exist so that later I can put in all those photos in context of where they belong in relationship to the other things. And I also scanned backs where I could get at them because writing, seemed like a good idea. Okay. So the CZUR can export scans in 3 different types: JPEGs or TIFFs, which are both image type files, and PDFs. So we're going to stick with the technical details here. The CZUR has several scanning formats depending upon your material. A flat single panel can be set to auto-detect multiple items. That is far and away what I use the most since I'm doing multiple clippings. There's a little setting that the little bars next to the picture are the settings where I go, yeah, I'm putting down multiple items and I want you to make each multiple item into a single file for me. Facing pages scans the left and the right, or in this case, the right and the left. You can actually tell it which direction you want, both sides of a book as individual files. So that's the one I've used the most for books. Combined sides will give you one scan of both sides. You get one large one. Manual selection gives you user selected areas, and I had to use that a few times when 2 anniversary announcements hadn't been cut apart. And I was like, oh, I want this one separate from this one. And I manually did it. And then no processing. I got to be perfectly honest with you. I think it just means it takes a picture of everything that's down there. And I haven't even played with that setting because I haven't needed to. Everything else has worked great. So after you've done your scans, there's processing modes that you can choose from. When the CZUR is connected to a computer, its software can be used to process scans that you've made either individually or in batches. Color mode provides 7 options for the appearance of the scans. Auto enhance, which is basically dealer's choice. The computer says, I think this is what kind of document it is, and does what it feels is best. Color, which is best suited for color documents. Black and white, which is best for black and white printed pages with text. Grayscale, which is best for black and white printed pages with photo or illustrations on it. Stamps, which converts background to white and optimizes the colors of a stamp marking. I have not yet scanned a stamp, so I can't attest to the validity of that. And pattern, which maximizes the preservation of any watermarks and other markings in the document. And finally, non-filter. And I've actually used non-filter quite a bit. The processing mode can be selected before you scan or can be done post-scanning while you're editing your document. So you don't have to get it right the first time, which is great because when I did my first set of scans, I was like, ooh, not so good, but I was able to fix the ones that I didn't like after the fact. I'm going to briefly show you how an image looks in each of these modes. So I generally selected non-filtered. Yeah, that's not bad. I generally selected non-filtered for the anniversary projects since those were more true to the newspaper clippings themselves. They tended to be brown, old newspaper clippings. And you'll see what my other choices were when I go through them. For comparison, auto enhanced on this particular image, made the text background more white, but degraded the picture just a little bit. Color, similar to auto enhanced. It has a little bit more of a brown tone there, but it's kind of like, what are you going to choose? It depends on the actual piece of scan that you have as to what works best for that and what your purposes are. Black and white has the most distinct text on a white background, but obviously alters the photograph too much. Black and white is designed for a text document like this, where it is literally a page full of text. There's grayscale. Grayscale kind of it's obviously black and white and gray in between. It gives you kind of a balance of both of them. If you don't like the sepia tone that I got with the non-filtered, grayscale adds some details to the picture, but might blow out the highlights just a little bit much. There's the stamps one. Like I said, I'm not sure what its goal is. I'll have to get a colorful stamp and put it on and try it. And there's the patterns one, which is designed to capture patterns. So that is all your choices. And again, it's be done before or much more successfully afterwards when you know what you've got and you know what you need. CZUR software has additional post-scanning editing features, ones that you would expect, including a rotate, which allows you to rotate the images 90 degrees or 180 degrees, or flip them vertically or horizontal. What it does not allow you to do, like a very robust photo editing program might do, it doesn't allow you to rotate it in increments of degrees. So you'll see later I had a slightly off one, and I ended up, it needed to be tilted maybe 6 degrees. I just cropped the sucker instead. Quality choices allow you to adjust the contrast, the sharpness, and the thickness of the image. When I'm working with simple documents, I haven't had to improve the quality a whole bunch. Overlapping edges, crop the edges of other pages when they appear in the scan of a page, the pages that are behind it. And then there's crop, as you would expect, standardize, which I haven't played with yet, and handwriting erase, which I don't use because I want to preserve all the handwriting I see on every single document that I touch. There are exporting scans available. We briefly touched on that earlier, but there's those were the scan captures that I listed earlier. This is the different ways that you can export your scans. Microsoft Word. The CZUR software is able to convert a document. If I scanned this in, which it's a Word document, if I scanned it in and it used OCR, which is optical character recognition, to make a searchable PDF, it could also make a Microsoft Word document out of this. It can also do Microsoft Excel. I haven't tried that yet. I wanted to kind of try it with a family sheet, but I haven't tried it yet. The one that's often used, PDFs, which is a portable document format, which is an incredibly accessible and stable file type. Even better, a searchable PDF using that optical character recognition. It basically reads it, and in the background of the file says, if you search for a word that's in here that I've read, I'll tell you if it's there and where it is. So searchable PDFs are what we're creating because it's so useful. TXT file, which is a text file. A text file has plain text with little to no formatting. It's often used in imports, and if you have GEDCOM, that might be in a text format. If it's not it's similar to that. And finally, TIFFs, which are tagged image file formats. Those are a lossless file format, meaning when they are compressed, they don't lose data. When you have a JPEG or a GIF or GIF, however you say it, when you compress them, you mail them, you save them, you edit it, you resave them, every one of those actions causes some of the pixels to fall out of your picture, basically. It loses information. A TIFF is an incredibly stable, lossless format for an image. The trade-off of that is high quality, super large storage requirements. If you change a JPEG from a JPEG to a TIFF, you've immeasurably increased the storage requirements. You got to keep that in mind. So I always take my best stuff and turn them into TIFFs so I can work with them. Okay. So now comes I'm getting into the exciting, trying something new. I've never embedded something in a PowerPoint. And next, I'd like to show you a video of editing and processing a batch of scans into a searchable PDF. This is using the components and all the options that I talked about. So I'm going to click on here and see if it opens. And if it doesn't, I'm going to go find it and open it myself. And then Gabby's going to have to tell me if when it opens, I don't see it opening. So Gabby, I'm gonna open.
So you gotta move your mouse to your screen behind you.
I don't see that on my screen.
No, because your screen's extended, so.
Okay, so if I show my taskbar,
No. Here.
I'm moving my mouse around.
Like you have two screens.
It's like you have two screens side by side.
So you've got to move it from one screen to the other.
Yeah,
So take your mouse.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're screen sharing. Oh, how the heck did you do that?
I just moved your mouse so it
You
goes off the edge.
literally moved it away. Okay,
You just moved off the edge.
wonderful. Okay,
Now you've got to switch.
So
so now I need to do it.
it's thinking.
It's thinking, okay, but they can't see it.
No, so you are gonna have to go and just manually share this.
Okay, I'm
So
gonna
go ahead and
pause
stop it,
this.
bring it back to the
I'm gonna
beginning.
bring it back. And
And
then I'm
then
gonna manually go to the
to
Zoom
Zoom.
window. And I'm going to increase it. Thank you for your patience, everyone. And I'm going to share.
Oh, so
And
just
that's the
click this. There you
settings.
go.
And then you think it's this one
Media player, yep. And then press J.
right there.
And it's not gonna show up there though.
That
Unless,
doesn't help them.
You have to.
I know, we gotta move this window now.
Yeah.
Can I, if I press this for you?
And hit
Will
start.
that- Yes.
Okay,
All right, now I gotta go see if everyone can see.
all right. Now do I cancel the thing that I'm seeing above it? Nope, that is the video. Okay. All right, so this screen shows me processing in the CZUR stock software. I'm gonna have to back it up. It's actually pretty self-explanatory. Would you like me to back it up and start it over again and talk about it? Or are you following along?
So you pop in.
There's the mouse, there's the mouse, there's the mouse.
You gotta talk loud enough for them to hear you online, Lisa.
Did that do it?
It's starting. It's starting.
That did it. All right. On the top right menu, I select the plus sign so I can open a folder of images. Looking at the files. Looking at the files that I previously scanned, I know that 2 of my file images include some of the scanning mat and need to be cropped. Clicking on a file opens it in the viewer. I selected file 15, which needed the bottom cropped, as you can see. On the left menu, I scrolled over and selected crop, which opens up the crop menu and allows me to adjust the lines to make my crop. And then I confirmed my choice. I confirmed it again. Okay, the second image that needed help was 26, which was askew and needed to be cropped. So on the left menu, I chose rotate, and then I saw that I could only rotate it 90 degrees or flip it or 180 degrees. So I closed it, and instead I decided to crop. And I went over and selected crop, which brought up that same screen. But then you see it's the old document here, and that's because I had left the check mark on the original document, even though I physically looked at the other document. So I just unchecked it, the old document, checked the new document, and reopened the crop window. And there is, in fact, the document that I wanted to play with. I can't tell you how many times I've had to check and uncheck because you can see a document, but if it's not checked, you're not actually physically working with it. Next, I wanted to enhance the color and remove some pink from the scans. So I selected all of the images so I could work with all of them in a batch. You can see that they're all checked and they all look like they need a little bit of enhancement. So I looked at what Auto Enhance did to see if it would work. It didn't do as much as I wanted to. It did make the background white, but it left some coloring on the slides, and I've seen this before. So I knew that my end goal would probably be black and white instead. So I selected black and white, and it does indeed make it stark white and black. I used the button to scroll through some of my other choices to make sure that that setting worked for the other documents. They all look pretty good to me. So I confirmed my choice. And now it's going to change the entire batch to black and white. While I have them all selected, I'm peeking at them now. And my next step is to create a PDF out of it. So I open up in the export menu. I could do Word, I could do Excel, could do a PDF, but what I want to do is a searchable PDF. So I selected searchable PDF, and the menu comes up. It tells me to identify the language. I confirmed it was in English. Yes, I want a PDF file. Yes, I'm okay with you auto adjusting it. And I always upgrade to high when I'm working on things. And I always ask it to show me the sort window, because that gives me one little last thing to peek at when I confirm. That's the sort window, so I can look and see that it has all of them. I typically scroll all the way to the bottom to ensure that I have whatever the last file number is that I'm expecting to see. And I knew that it was 28 files that I was working with. So I always peek at that, even if I don't need to look at every single document. I said, this is correct. I went to the file folder that I wanted to be in. Where do I want to save this PDF at? And then I named it. So it's the same as creating any document. You have to tell it where to go and what do you want to call it. Clearly, I could type faster. So Bandau Lizzie is my husband's great aunt. Grandmother? Aunt. Elizabeth. Grandmother. Yep. And so when you confirm, it starts doing things. You see a progress button at the top, but you have the option, the button I just clicked, to move it to the background, because I'm always doing other things over at the Humble House. And you can't see the entire screen, but down in the corner where you kind of see my mouse circling, there's a little icon that says in progress or done. And that quickly said it was done with my document. And so I opened up the file folder where it said it was. I clicked to open up my searchable PDF. And so I've opened it up. It's in Adobe Acrobat now. And it has taken all of those individual files and stitched them together in a single PDF for me. And as a double check, I made it searchable. I said, oh, who do I know in this family that I can search for? So I typed my name in and said, can it find me? And yes, it found me right away. So it is indeed searchable. And that's the end of the first video. Okay. So now I need to close the video, I think. Or do I just need to share something different maybe instead?
I was gonna say, if it's still in the player, you can open a different video.
Okay. If I go into Zoom, there's the other videos much later. So if I go into Zoom, I have to find I'm in Zoom. Share. Do I stop sharing now?
Well, just share, if you want to do PowerPoint, share the PowerPoint.
Share the PowerPoint instead. And that is probably this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So even if you know some technology, other technology, unless you're using it every day, can totally, throw a wrench in things. All right. So I'm going to advance to the next slide. And this is your first opportunity for questions about anything that I've covered so far, because I talked a lot about the technological aspects of the program. Does anybody have any questions?
How much in gutter does Do tight margins really cause issues with the curvature of a book?
Yeah, so in the family Bible that I was doing, it was a larger book, and the lasers that come out of this and measure, then the software flattens the curve. It really did that. I didn't have any issues with feeling like I was losing pages. Bibles tend to have larger margins to begin with. I didn't feel like I was losing any information on the side. And if I felt like it included a little too much, you know how it gets dark down in the binding of the book, I could crop it, and I could apply that to the entire book. If the book consistently scanned, I can go, oh, let's just make this page a little smaller across the board. So I wouldn't even have to do it one by one.
And for books that won't stay open, do you have any?
For the books that won't stay open, I have a slide about this a little later, and it's in my demo. These funny little yellow things, which you cannot see in the Zoom presentation, but they can see here in the room, are called finger cots. And you put your finger in them, and you put your thumb on them, and then you take your book and you hold it down. And so there are a little bit of a drawback from a finger cot. I've watched videos where if you can get away without it, if the page isn't literally trying to close on you, you don't use it. The scanning technology was good enough that those pages, even though they were a little bit, oh, I kind of want to flutter, they scanned beautifully. So, but when I scanned a book and it was like, oh, I'm going to close, that's when I use one finger cot or the other to solve that problem. But there are other issues with them appearing or disappearing in the thing. They should automatically be taken out, but you will notice it. And if you're like me and you accidentally cover things, you're like, yeah, so all that stuff went away. So a little tiny bit of a learning curve to get comfortable with finger cots, but they're indispensable for some books. Any other questions? Okay. So, yes.
Can you select the number of dots, but even though it lengthens it, does it give you the ability to do more dots per inch?
No.
So you could improve the quality of some pages.
No, the dots per inch is a function of the hardware and software, so you can't improve upon that at all. You might be able to get something larger down here by lifting your scanner a little higher and getting a little bit more distance, but your overall image is going to say have the same dots per inch. So I've scanned some photo-like things that I thought, oh, that was really not bad, but I'm a photographer, amateur photographer and birder, and so I want my photos to be the best. And when I touch all my genealogical photos, I want them all bigger. I want them all better. And so 300 dots per inch isn't going to do it for me. And so if I move to a flatbed scanner, even then I have to take into consideration, is the V19 Epson, whatever it is, over at the Humble House, is that one that I might use? Or am I going to wait and get a scanner that is the Cadillac of scanners for photos? And for me, I'm probably going to save my pennies for that, you know, or find a friend that has one. So there's an Epson Perfection 600 that is known to be excellent. And that's a combination of the scanner, the lights, the lenses, and also the software. How does it process it? What can it do with the data that comes back from a picture? So, okay. So this next segment, I'm going to talk about the anniversary project that I've been working on at the Humble House. I started it this summer using the CZUR scanner to digitize 3 different collections of local anniversary announcements, clippings that were stored in the Humble House. And although the CZUR, it's hard to say, shines at scanning bound books, this project really does highlight another one of its strengths, and that is creating those searchable PDFs. It uses OCR, which is optical character recognition software, to read the printed text and convert it into a searchable document. And we've seen that in action. And these are 2 samples, one on index cards, which was one set, one loose, which was another set, and then there was a bunch of binders, which people have been immeasurably helpful in organizing to make this project go faster. Okay. So that project is almost complete, and it'll allow us to share those clippings in an organized, searchable digital collection with not only the Sno-Isle Genealogical Society members, but ultimately with genealogists anywhere in the world. I scanned over 3,700 announcements. And ultimately, those will be combined into 25 searchable PDFs that are alphabetized. And that was all done using the CZUR scanner and its embedded software. So there was no letter X. So only 25 files are going to get created. So my basic process, this is a sample photo that I grabbed because I never took pictures of myself over at the Humble House working. My basic process was to scan in the clippings in the flat single page mode with a multi-setting, which detects separate clippings and saves each clipping in its own file. And it mentioned earlier, I get about 12 individual clippings, 4 to 6 larger ones, 6 index cards, or even 2 single pages in a scan. And this is an example of what it looks like when you lay it all out, and you can see in the left-hand menu that it's got individual pictures for each one of those things. And they don't have to be straight. It sits there and goes, oh, a little bit wonky. You just have to get it on there, not overlapping, not touching. Thanks to help from Jane, I was able to scan large batches of alphabetized clippings, which help ensure they were already in alphabetical order in my final PDF. And after scanning, I used the software program to rename them and copy the initial scans into a folder of my choosing. And so you can see I created 26 folders because there were some with no name, and so that needed its own folder as well. And then I had to start the process of renaming, and that was a lot of angst. It's probably the most difficult part of the project, was deciding what to do with naming. CZUR puts it out. You can edit the naming conventions a little bit with a number. And then I was like, well, but I want them all alphabetized and they're coming from different collections. So we tried renaming them. I wasn't happy with how long that was taking. So I went back to numbering. And then I realized they'll never be alphabetized unless I rename them. So I took a file home and I renamed everything over the course of a couple of weeks of TV watching.
Yeah. One dedicated volunteer.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you can watch TV and do something, are you really working? So, but it did take a lot of time. So I saved the files, ultimately groom's last name, groom's first name, and bride's name. And if there was a maiden name available, I appended that on the end as well. Occasionally we have the lady's name first and the man's name, but we got as much in there as possible because it's all searchable. And we want to make sure that everything is searchable. So for each of the documents that I was making, I created a title page for each PDF using a graphics program. Gabby helped me with that. I believe it was in Canva. Yep, it was in Canva online, so that it was a native graphic file that was coming through and meshed very well with what CZUR was already working on. I also created a single cover sheet that included information for source citation. And I scanned it in using the CZUR scanner, and then I just copied it to each one of the lettered folders. The cover sheet, the title sheet is just attractive. The cover letter with the source information, that's almost really needed, because if you're a genealogist and you see this resource online in a PDF, you want to know, where did that come from? Who has it? What's the repository and how do I credit it? So then when all of any one given letter's clippings were scanned and renamed, I opened up the entire folder in the CZUR program, similar to what I did in the video. And I had it create a PDF for myself, including that title page and the cover letter. And I generally got several minutes break while it was processing these very large files. And I use that time to either set up my next batch or to go gab with the other volunteers. And then after the searchable PDFs were created, they were uploaded to Archive in a Box. And Corey and the board are just deciding on how all that file storage is going to work. I'm making them, they're going to do something with them. So I can now share with you an example, and this is actually an older example of one of the PDF documents. This one is for the last names beginning with G. Now, I think if I click on this, it's going to go further forward. So I'm going to go to the taskbar. I'm going to open up this. I'm going to go, you're not seeing it. Hey, that's a bonus. Okay, 6 documents. And No, that's unavailable. Okay. I embedded it. Let's see if it works. An error exists. Acrobat may not. Okay. Let's see if I can open it. Okay, I'm going to, you can see what one page of it looks like. If you use your imagination, because I can't open the embedded one because it was in a flash drive. I did not think that one through. I have all my backups on the flash drive because I thought that through, but I didn't think to copy that one file over to my computer. So, and I don't want to go digging for a sample. I need to find a little X so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so this particular couple had two different announcements. There were times when that happened, they were in different collections, and I just included them all, occasionally took them out. But this particular page is the page I landed on when I was scrolling through to see if it looked good. It's literally a PDF with all of these individual announcements in one single document. Similar to the list of descendants that I did on my video. Okay. So after creating the first PDFs, Corey introduced me to Google's Notebook LM, which is an AI-powered research tool that allows users to upload documents and ask questions, lots and lots of questions, and generate summaries or get insight about those specific documents. And so it was that I was able to use to create an alphabetized index of the names of the grooms and brides from each PDF. So this is a separate document. It looked at that PDF with all of those things on it and said, this picture belongs to these people. And it listed the names out and it alphabetized for me. There is a bit of a learning curve with AI, and I'll mention that again later. Trying to get it to return what I wanted probably took a dozen tries, and it gets better and better. I get better and better, I hope. So AI is an interesting beast. So I found there's a learning curve to the correct phrasing of the question or request that you want for an AI to return the product that you're envisioning. I spent hours working with various AIs online, including Notebook LM, ChatGPT, Gemini, which is for images, and Microsoft Copilot. That's just a sprinkling of the ones out there that are basically free and accessible to me. There are a lot more available. That's definitely an adventure that deserves an entire presentation all on its own from someone that's more experienced than me. So I'll leave that for another time. Okay, so for those of us that are working in documents written in foreign languages, I personally have German and Norwegian ancestors and have been working in the foreign documents a lot. But if you're not fluent in the language of your ancestor, CZUR can create searchable PDFs in more than 180 languages. Now that sounds great, but keep in mind, it's not translating those scanned documents. It's just creating a searchable document. So if the original language is German or Spanish in the document, and you want to search for a word in that document, you need to be putting in the German or Spanish into that document to find it. But it is useful, and this is why CZUR is a worldwide company. There are indeed online resources that will translate your scanned documents, including Google Translate, where you type or copy paste text into the box to be translated. You can go either way. This example is some terms in German that I'm having it go from English to German, but it can go backwards. Also, Google Drive you can drop documents into. And this screenshot is from my phone. One of my favorite things, no matter where I'm at, is to use Google Lens. It says Google Translate basically in my phone app. And I am constantly with my computer and my phone going, what does that say in a foreign language? And if I move it up and down a little bit, I convince it to actually give me a translation. That's been my greatest success in dealing with the Norwegian documents and German documents, for example. Okay, so the indexing project, the anniversary index project, and what I've discussed briefly in this middle portion. Does anybody have any questions about that? Say again?
How's your sanity?
Your sanity.
Oh, gosh, okay.
It was
like-
questionable to start with.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, thank you. You know, my sanity is actually going to be really tested if I stick with this and I move on to the obituaries. I feel like I've got the process down, and this smaller project was to get that nailed down. How do we name and what do we do? And in this particular instance, the alphabetization was the most critical part of smoothly creating a document that comes out alphabetized. Because even though you're putting out a PDF that is searchable, so it doesn't really matter where in the document the name is, when you open it, it's so nice that it's all alphabetized. So the obituaries are basically alphabetized. And so if I scan them in the order they are in and I never rename them, because if this was only 3,700 documents and we have a room full of obituaries, I cannot even begin to imagine renaming them. So I'm going to lean on the CZUR and say, scan it, make it into a PDF and get it out there, and not worry too much about how pretty it looks in the end, whether it's alphabetized. So, but this was a perfect platform for learning about what it can do and how it can do it and how fast it is. Okay,
So,
yes.
one was more, not so much a question, but just reaffirming. So when you put those like 9 documents or pictures up, when you stepped on the foot pedal, it took 9 images,
Yes,
right? Because of the way it was configured.
Right.
So
Yes.
if you had several small newspaper clippings being the best example, your speed not only is fast because of the scanner itself, but 1 foot click gets you 9 separate images.
exactly.
Not one image that you have to go in and divide up
Right.
into 9 later. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that, because that's.
Yeah, that basically, that 1.5 seconds got me a multitude on the flat, the flat, single flat mode set to multi, so that it saw all of them individually and it knew what to do with them. And it was done fast. On one of the computers at the Humble House, I was originally in the right-hand seat. That one would bog down processing those photos. It would scan them and then it would be, okay, wait, I'm making it into the picture. I'm making it into the picture. When I moved over to the other seat, like that. So processor speed's, you know, an important factor. If it's too slow, it's probably the computer. It's not this. So, yeah.
And then I
very
did
fast.
actually have a question. So
Yes.
you talked about photo albums and the fact that it's not great with photos.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you could repeat what you were doing, because I was just kind of going through this, thinking about the fact that what I would call a curated document, a photo album often has its own context and its own meaning or meta meaning
Yeah.
in the placement of the pictures or writing on the side of the album. So
Yeah.
what were you doing again?
So, in the last batch of, so my parents, my grandparents, they're all passed away, my husband's family. And so I've become the repository. And so I got a set of 3 different albums, some more typical, look like a book, and then the one monstrous album that looked like a ledger book that was falling apart. And in each of those albums, when I opened it, there were some loose pictures. And taking a loose picture out and going, who is this, was next to impossible. Whereas if it was in context on a page, I could at least put it in the correct time frame with the correct people and make some sort of an association with it. And so by taking the large photo album, which is just a little bit smaller than the actual scanning map that we have, I scanned every single page separately as a file so that I could say, when these fall apart, when these photos are not next to each other, I can look backwards and say, this is the context of where they were in. So, and then on the pages where I could take them out, I also turned them over and took their backs. So there's a lot of glue used in 1920 though, let me tell you. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm done talking about the project that I did in the Humble House, and I've mentioned the other massive project that's coming up. But what about us? How can we use the CZUR scanner? So in preparing for this presentation, I thought, what do I have in my personal collection that I could scan? And as I mentioned, both my husband's and my parents and grandparents have passed away. And I'm the custodian not only of genealogy documents, family Bibles, a collection of journals, unpublished novels written by my father, recipe cards from my grandmother, my grandfather is Lutheran pastor. I have all of his sermons. I actually have all of his flight logs too, because he was a pilot. Whoops, I went too far. I clicked one too many times. There we go, back to the music. Several large pieces of sheet music. My grandfather wrote love songs to my grandmother, including all the musical notes and the words, but they're very large format, so I've never been able to scan them in before. And my husband's great-grandfather's journal from his service in the Pacific Theater during World War II. And let me tell you, there's some body stuff in there. Like not safe for work, not safe, it turns out, for my junior high kid that took it to school to share. Like, oh my goodness, when I found out what was in it, we had not read it through. He was a single man, let's just say that. And so if there's a nook or cranny in my spare room, it's pretty much filled. So I also do have the stacks of photo albums. And I briefly mentioned it, Scanner does not excel at scanning photos itself due to size constraints. And the trade-off is time and effort. You want a high quality flatbed scanner, a dedicated photo scanner, be much better if you're going to be scanning in photographs. Okay, so another thing that I have, we had Mark here a couple months ago, maybe December's meeting, where he mentioned he took a grandfather's book, which is similar to this. You can see it on the screen as well for those of you that are on Zoom. And a grandparent's book basically has blanks in it for the grandparent or parent or whatever to fill out to share information with their grandkid, and they gift it to their grandkid. And so even if I don't do anything else with this book, as far as processing it beyond what I've done, I have scanned it and now can send it to my son who lives in Nebraska and say, this is, from your grandmother to you specifically, but I can share it with my other sons as well. So I could, Mark created, he took the book and he hand typed in all the questions. This can export to Microsoft Word. I did give that a go, but the biggest problem I ran into is the fancy font. So even though this is a font plus handwriting, it really struggled with the fancy font. If this had been plain text, it might have done much better because it returned something very similar to what you see on the screen, but not good enough for me to share with you and be like, wow, I mean, that's AI for you. AI and me this week is like, not sure how I feel about you. So, okay. So earlier I showed you the finger cots, people online on Zoom. You're now seeing the yellow finger cots. The picture with the book in it shows you how you hold it. You put your fingers in the hole, your thumbs on the depression, and you can use it to smooth the page out, start in the middle, drag it outwards a little bit and smooth it out. It has the little markers on it and it's a distinct color so that the software can say, I know what that is, and take it out. So now I'm going to show you a page that I scanned out of the grandmother's book using the finger cots. And probably even from here, you can see where the finger cot was. So after scanning, it will remove the finger cot by cloning the surrounding area to an extent. If you are not careful where you place those finger cots so that it doesn't obscure text or, in this case, a border, you will still be able to see where it was. And you can see that on the edge. It's, well, I could do a better clone if I got into a picture thing and cloned it. I could make it disappear. But for the purposes of scanning and sharing genealogical, this is really quite reasonable. Okay, so this one is now me scanning in the grandparents' book. So you get to see me actually using the finger cots. And so I'm going to click on it. It wants to think about opening it. I'm going to move my mouse over and go open. Ha ha! Can they see it on Zoom too, or do I have to share it to Zoom? I do need to. Okay, so let me share it to Zoom and back that up. So taskbar. And I'm going to put this on pause and I'm going to back it all the way up. And then I'm going to go to Zoom, which is that little thing. Sorry that there's so many steps, but there's nothing good that happens without a lot of steps, right? I'm going to hit share and I want to share the media player. Did it share?
You go.
Okay, so now you can see it, they can see it, bonus points. And now I'm going to go back to the media. I'm going to pick up my script, the short script, okay. And I'm going to hit lay on this. Okay, so the screen shows me scanning grandmother's book in my dining room. You can see my laptop on the right side of the video. Not quite the beginning, is it?
You were about 10, 15 seconds.
No. Okay. Whoops, sorry, my bad. I'm gonna,
Still displayed online.
it's still displayed online. I can see, whoops. Okay, we're gonna jump in right here where it's at instead of trying to back it up. So you can see that I've already scanned the cover. You can see the cover is sitting as a little icon in the left thumbnail in the left menu. And now I'm going to change it from scanning a single wide page to scanning for book. So I'm selecting the facing page, which now has a little orangey yellow line on the screen up the middle of the book. And I slid it over just to adjust it a little bit. You do not have to be exact when you do it. And you didn't see me click anything because I hit the foot scanner and 2 new thumbnails popped up because it scanned those pages. And if you watch carefully while it's scanning, I'm bringing out the thumb cots to kind of smooth it down. If you watch carefully while it's scanning, you see 3 red laser lights flash across the book, and that's when it's actually scanning. So I'm turning the pages, using the finger cot on the side that wants to flip over a little too much, hitting scan. I saw the laser marks, and it adds 2 more images to the left-hand panel where it's showing me what my scans are. 1 more page, another scan. The family tree that's filled out by hand. We've gotten a few generations back from that now. This is the page that was obscured by the finger cot. I showed you that's just to show sliding it over. I ended up in the middle where there's text. I wanted to hold it down, so I slid it down and held it there instead so that I would avoid obscuring the text. That's the one where the finger cot totally obscures the border and it gets taken out later. And I said, oh, that's enough examples, and I closed my book. Okay. All right, so short and sweet. It's a book. You turn the pages, you hit the foot pedal, and it does all the work. It really is. I dislike using flatbed scanners. You have to open them, put things down, move them around, smash things. I love the CZUR because it is easy to use. Okay, so I now need to unshare, Gabby, the movie for Zoom people.
Just go reshare.
Reshare the PowerPoint, okay? And I think it's this one. And share. Okay.
And you said that there's a setting that, and this book may not have been a great example, but as you flip the pages, it would then automatically take the
Yeah.
picture. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, there is an auto detect feature for scanning itself. I can click the computer, I can hit the foot pedal, I actually can hit the button over here with a photo, but there for books, there's an auto detect where it is using AI to say, hey, they just turned the page, I'm taking a picture. But you have to be consistent when you do it. Sometimes I was like, oh, I didn't have it open yet. And I
Or for something like spiral bind that would lay flat real quick.
No, I think it's user error. I think that I needed to get better. I think I needed to use it enough that I was good, you know? It's probably not that steep of a learning curve. I just, like, I really don't have rhythm. So, yeah, I can slow dance and that's it, dude. Okay. I'm going to go to the next page. So the grandmother's book that I scanned has a glossy cover on it. It's just like a photograph, glossy, shiny cover. And as can be expected, that first scan that it took, it caused a lot of glare to show in that cover. So I rescanned that page using the offset lights that were shown earlier. When I showed the parts of the scanner. The offset lights is a set of lights that literally has a magnetic notch back here. Somewhere in there. And so when it turns on, you can see from the picture that it shoots light off at an angle instead of straight down on the pictures like these overhead lights normally do. And so I retook that picture using those offset lights, and this is the result. So a much clearer, it brightened it up too, so the color's not quite as true, but it made it much more readable instead. So the second personal project that I scanned was a packet of letters and genealogy documents that my mother-in-law received from her aunt. It had 89 pages in it, and it took me just under 9 minutes to scan. And that was with me pausing to look at the material that I was scanning. If I just wanted to, whip it down, I'm sure I could have cut time off of that, but it wasn't a race for me. So I found that 89 pages, that was really acceptable. There was a lot of flipping because the handwritten letters were written on both sides of the material of the paper. Some letters were typed and some letters were handwritten. And from scanning in the anniversary announcements, which sometimes had handwritten information on the typed paper as well, I learned that CZUR's searchable PDF successfully recognizes printed text, but it does not play nicely with handwritten information. When I created a searchable PDF of my great aunt's letter packet, it confirmed again that only typed letters and documents are really searchable by CZUR. It is not an AI, it does not read handwriting. Since scanning in a document to create a digital copy for storing or sharing is just the first goal of scanning, I explored just a little bit more to see what could be achieved with those handwritten documents that I scanned in. And I tried again with AI. I scanned the letters in with CZUR, and then I exported them as plain PDFs, not searchable this time, because when I exported them as a searchable PDF, hoping that some of those characters would get recognized, the AI that looked at it said, "Oh, there's the letter I. You have a letter written to you. It appears to be correspondence, and it contains the letter I." And I was like, "Wow, okay." So I have very mixed results with the review. The free versions that I tried using, and I tried a few, weren't very successful, and I'm not ready yet to explore the paid versions. So I revisited Google's Notebook LM. Since it's designed to glean information for notes, including handwritten notes, I figured it could handle the handwriting and tell me what it is. And I'm happy to say that after a couple of hours of verbal wrestling, I finally built the correct sentence prompt to teach Notebook LM to give me a transcription of the handwritten letter. I had to tell it exactly how many lines I was seeing, and sometimes it would be like, "No, there's this many lines." And I'm like, "You're on crack. You don't know what you're talking about." However, you can't criticize AI. It never says, "Okay, my bad." That I have learned. So you can see a portion of the handwritten. This is page 2 of a letter. So it starts out in the middle of a sentence. And for those of you that can kind of see, it starts up there. One was Robert talking about a son or a brother or something. And this said it was Albert. And when I told the AI it's Robert, it came back absolutely telling me, "No doubt about it, this is Albert." I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to argue with you yet." So I did have that one letter that's translated very well. The second letter, this one, gave Notebook LM serious pause, and we disagreed about the results heavily. I asked my husband to verify the transcription. I read him the letter. Her handwriting is difficult to read on these big sheets, and I was hoping it could read it to me. But I read it to him, and he's like, yeah, you've got the correct transcription for everything. So I asked Notebook LM, I typed in that transcription, asked it to verify that I was correct. It repeatedly said we were wrong. So, okay, I'm not wrong, but I'm not going to argue with you. And it didn't care. So this is difficult to read. You can see that it doesn't match up, as we saw in the previous thing. It kind of goes on a tangent. I'm going to show you what it really says. One was Robert. I'll try to find the book again at the library. And two, I could look up my genealogy teacher. She works at the library as well as teach. And there's a genealogy group at the library who will help anyone who wants help. So if you want me to do any research, let me know. Best of luck on your reunion. Love, Mir. Her name was Miriam. P.S. Thanks for the personal invite. It was much appreciated. Pretty straightforward, what I expected the letter to be about, because I've seen previous letters about these pending reunions. This is Schutz family, German in Milwaukee, by the way. And so here's what Notebook LM says it said. And was Albert. I'll try to find the book name at the library, but I feel I could pick it up at an antique book sale. I work a genealogy group at the library, and there's lots of books we work from, but I will be glad to be any possible help. Please write. Best of luck on your minute. That, little mess up, I can understand. Jean, whatever. P.S. Thank you for the personal invite. It was much appreciated. So the first two words and the last sentence are correct. Yay. Okay. So, this is a duplicate slide. Okay, it's not a duplicate slide. It's actually about the third letter that I uploaded. So here's here's those two pieces together that I just read out loud. So after my first success, I was not impressed with this go around at all. But since I love a challenge and I'm apparently a glutton for punishment, I uploaded a third letter and it got even worse. I didn't bother to take screenshots of this, but here's how it went. Apparently, once AI goes off track, it goes deep off track and it just runs with what it thinks it knows. So instead of a letter that I read that was about genealogy research, a reunion that was upcoming, and my great aunt's acceptance of her parents' struggles, there was some infidelity, questionable parentage on children. That had been the biggest scope of this great aunt's research. And so she was coming to terms with what had happened in her parents' life around those instances. So a little bit of an epiphany, but not quite that much. Okay. So what Notebook LM returned to me, it read the word research as ranch, and that's when it went running. It proceeded to weave a story about her on a ranch where she basically received enlightenment. I kid you not. It had nothing to do with any of the other things. She came out of this a happy woman in the AI letter. It was amazing. I'm not sure if the AI was drinking or if I should have started drinking, but it was indeed funny. So if you have time on your hands, I encourage you to explore what AI might be able to do for handwritten documents for you, but be reminded, take it with a grain of salt. So in conclusion, the CZUR scanner is ideal for scanning in books and documents, especially those that are too large or fragile. And I know we all, oh, that's the next line, too large or fragile for flatbed scanners. It is wicked fast, and I know we all appreciate the value of our time. Once you work with the scanner, it becomes very easy to use. Be sure to take a little time to plan your project goals and workflow, and also scan a smaller sample of your project first to see how that works out and work out your kinks before plugging ahead full steam. And then scan and share. Okay. So I hope I've successfully introduced you to the CZUR scanner and its abilities, the ways we're using it in the Humble House, as well as the ways you might use it for your personal research genealogical collections. Are there any questions? I appreciate your patience with the technology part of this, so it's rather ironic. Okay, so any questions at all? No. Okay, if we have a couple minutes, I will try to scan 2 pages of this book. Do we have a couple minutes?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
Okay, I'm not sure how well this will translate to sharing. I'm going to try to share the correct screens. I have to go to Zoom. Say what?
That was real quick before lunch.
Yes.
Do you have experience scanning older slides?
I actually have reams and reams of 35mm slides. And I have resorted to, I've tried many smaller photo scanners that are dedicated to them where you pop them in, it has a light underneath. I've tried them, had mixed results with them, and not kept any of those, and resorted to actually setting up a light box and taking a picture of it with my bridge camera, which is smaller, bigger than a point and shoot and smaller than a professional camera. I've had better luck with that method. And as I said, I've got the Epson Perfection, I think it's V600, I think, is a premier photo scanner that comes with holders for it. And that's the kind of direction I would go with all the 35mm slides. Any negatives that you have from film way back when, and regular pictures as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because this CZUR is not really made for
It
slides.
is not,
so
it does not have, it doesn't have the resolution that you need really to do that kind of thing, and you need it to be backlit. So it's not at all made for that. Yes, sir.
What do these cost?
Say again?
How much do they cost?
So I was just out on the Amazons and they've got a variety. This one comes in the 350 to 400. They have some that are up more of the 650, and they've got some lower end ones that are 150 to 200. And I don't know if the software is all the same for those lower end ones.
Same manufacturer.
This was just for CZUR. Yeah.
So, and I have one of the lower end ones. It was about $107 when I bought it. And it does amazingly well. I scanned about 4,000 documents in 2 days in Wichita when I was back at my grandmother's house. So it has very similar software. I don't know if it does the double pages quite as well as this high-end one. But I did do books where I just told it, grab this page. And it has the auto, so I would literally, I set mine to auto. And I would just throw a piece of paper on it because it auto corrects I didn't have to make it straight, it auto does that. So I would just throw a piece of paper on it, grab it off, and it literally was just tossing paper and putting it inside. So even the low end ones work really well.
The other thing, and I think you're bringing, yeah, so there is a way for you to go into a visual presentation mode. So if you ever have a reason to show physical items or handwriting or something, you can actually project that stuff. So teachers will use that. A lot of people on YouTube who do art stuff will you actually see them moving their hand and such. And so it's got that additional feature available.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is sharing on Zoom or not.
It is.
It is perfect. Okay, and it's sharing here in the room, so that's a great success. I brought up, I already had the CZUR scanning program open, and I go to the lower right menu here, and I can hit the scan button, and that opens up the general scanning area. And so the auto detect, in this case, I probably would be switching over. It's a little bit of a shine on this book. And so it's trying to interpret where the actual edges are and what kind of media this is. And so if I needed a good scan of this, I would do a manual selection and make a square and just, really line it up nice and square with it. But instead, I'm going to see what can it do with the inside. I'm going to start with a picture here, and we'll slide it over a little. Okay. I'm going to use these. Anytime you have the beginning of a book, it tends to tends to want to open up. And if I hold the page a little, you can see there's a little bit of a shininess to this old material. This is a book from Alan, who is a visiting guest tonight, right?
Yeah.
Is this a family book?
Yes.
Okay. And so just in case I can get a good, I'm going to softly go across it, go to the edge. I'm going to go as far to the edge as I can and still hold it. You know, I don't like that presentation. I'm going to change it to facing pages, which is a book mode. I'm going to move it over so that the center lines up perfectly. I probably don't have to be that perfect. The auto adjustment takes care of a lot of it. And so I'm going to pull that over and as far as I can go, and then I'm going to hit it with my foot. Let's see if that works. There's my red lights, and on the left-hand side, you can see those scans starting to come up. Allow it. Okay. Got it. That didn't come up at home. Okay, I've used it a lot too. I'm not gonna set it to, I'd have to go back into settings to change it. So I'm gonna scan also another picture in the book. And I'm gonna scan it twice. I'm gonna scan it once without using the finger cots so that we can kind of see what does the result look like. And then I'm gonna do the finger cots also to, my foot wasn't square. Okay.
And this book had the binding start to come apart.
Yeah.
And one edge of it, I glued that, and so it's now stiffer and doesn't want to flatten out as much.
Yeah. And you know, if you have a resource like this available to you, why would you want to put this through, you know, a flatbed scanner and risk damaging it anymore? So I'm going to do a second one, just so I can see if there's any difference in the very flat aspect that I just tried to get it to take. Put your bookmark back in. That right back over here for now. And on the share screen, I'm going to go back and look at these. So these are the images that I can select from on the right-hand side of the menu. And I'm going to jump to the bottom. You can see that it didn't crop this. Auto enhancement would take care of this, or I could crop it, but that's a very clear image there. The same image without me holding it looks like that. So the page is similar, not quite as flat. You'd have to decide. It does take more time to scan and use those finger cots. It's just an extra step versus I'm holding it open. Let's go look at what the image difference is. I can see just a little bit of a glare there on that picture and on that picture. I'm going to see if I can get a better scan. I'm going to go back to scan. And what I'm going to do is mess with, there's light settings here. I can make this brighter. I think that increased the glare, but I'm going to take a picture nonetheless. And I'm going to attach the offset lights. The magnetic holder is right there, turned on automatically. Those can get used in addition to what's sitting there. I don't think that that's an advantage. I'm going to turn off that. That reduces the glare an awful lot because now my light is coming at an oblique angle to the picture. Just ignore my fingers in there. Are you going to crop this? Is your goal the picture right now?
I can crop that.
Okay, you can crop that. Because otherwise I can do another one. And I'm going to turn back to that first one. He's going to have to come to the Humble House and use this. He's going to see how well this works, and he's absolutely going to have to come.
Since there's so few copies of that out there, I would like to preserve it for other family members who don't have access to that.
Absolutely.
Now, I can't even figure out who has them, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to peek at, I'm going to go back and peek at the difference between the ones that we just did. So this is the last one, which should match the first one. So different color, the clarities, well, different. This is, this is an example of when you look at a picture and you go, what is it that I like in the picture and what is it that I'm trying to get? If I go to color mode, and you can, it's kind of small, but you can see it there. If I auto enhance it, it doesn't change much. If I change it to color, it graded out a bunch and lost a lot of brightness. Black and white's not going to work. Grayscale sort of works. Grayscale is not too bad to work for that. And then stamps isn't going to work and patterns not going to work. And then non-filters is just the original. So it's not bad. I'm going to confirm that one. Okay. All right. So that's a live example of using it to protect a delicate book. Okay, any other questions?
You did say that how you've done all this work and then now kind of turning it over to someone else who's gonna say, how is someone gonna?
How are they going to access them?
Right, and that's
Correct.
To be developed, is that how I?
I think Corey can address that a little bit better than I can.
How we're gonna,
What are we going to do with my files that I'm making for you?
so there's still a little bit of a discussion going on exactly how that'll be. Probably set them up initially as a member, is a perk of membership. And then we'll kind of go from there. So there's a couple of ways for us to do that. And we haven't 100% decided, but within the next month or so, we'll have that and we'll start deploying them.
I guess, just on the practical side, do you envision like a member could go to the website and see this as a project and then start using it at home, just checking into the website, or do they have to come into the?
That's what we're looking at.
That's what you're still looking at, okay, all right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're leading. We would like to have more self-service. But when we get to non-member stuff, that would be, again, a little different, and that would be true of other things.
Sure, yeah, no, thanks, that's.
Do you have any thoughts on making these available to the state libraries? Since that probably is most of what you're doing is in Washington.
Yeah, so what we're doing with these, we're actually talking to we have a separate project digitizing the Edmonds Tribune Review newspapers. We've been getting grants from Snohomish County, and we now have 1917, well, no, actually, a few from before 1910 up through, I believe, 1930 now. So we've been talking to the Washington State Library. They're trying to get all the newspapers digitized. So our obituaries, our anniversaries are just clippings from those. So their preference is going to be to have the entire newspaper. So you'd go through and you'd find the obituary or the wedding announcement, anniversary announcement as a function of that paper, which is where I think that's at.
Okay.
And because we don't have the papers, this is literally, and this goes from before I started with the group, somebody was cutting them out and taping them to whatever and making little notes about what paper they came from, what date, so on and so forth.
And those clippings are mostly from the 90s.
Yes,
So a long time ago.
yeah. There's a lot of, this gets, sort of weird with somebody's decided this is a way we can make money on. It's like, really, you're gonna make money on the Edmonds High School football game results from 1987. Good luck with that. I'm a graduate. I don't care. But so some of that stuff, you can go on to either newspapers.com, or most of the libraries have Newsbank. And you, for the local papers, and you can also search there. It's the same sort of deal.
A lot of newspapers are having financial problems. And
Yes.
they're looking at, can we take our archives and charge for them?
Everett Herald goods.
Everett Herald is charging.
You know,
But they're also working with the state library. And that's where we get in, because the Edmonds, they've done a very good job of tracking the ownership. Because you get into a problem with copyright. And so the Edmonds Tribune Review started as 2 newspapers, bought by the Enterprise newspapers. If you're from around here, you'll remember the Edmonds, Linwood, yada, yada, yada. Enterprise, which got bought by the Everett Herald. The Everett Herald was owned by the Post, got sold off to Sound Media, got sold off to a group in South Carolina. So figuring out who you need to ask, but I understand from them, they are open to other groups who are willing to try doing some of the old stuff, digitizing, but they're not going to they're not going to financially support it. For the reason they've got worried about keeping newspaper journalists on staff and aren't worried about genealogy stuff from the 1950s. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I was gonna mention is that I'm gonna be going back to the board probably next week to talk about how we want to allow people to use things like this or our other scanners or the PCs that we have up at Humboldt House. Probably gonna be once again a member perk, but we don't have all those figured out. But for people who have a few little things, we may be able to get up and going with that and help people do some things up there in the next few months. But as we've talked about here, there's also some very reasonable price, particularly if you've got a lot of stuff. You may find that it's within the range and you can get everything done. Take a year, scan everything, and then donate to the Sno-Isle Genealogical Society, and you can pick it up on your taxes or
Especially if
something.
we had a session with Lisa
Mm.
and make a donation.
Yeah, my love language is service, and I adore helping people with their work. So, yeah, I've
This is
got,
a great example of the sorts of things that we want to be able to do for members and non-members, because there's, things like the book you have here is a great example. And, if you can digitize that, again, depending on copyrights and things of that nature, that's also something that could in theory be uploaded to an archive, internet archive or Google Books or things like that.
just since you are zooming and gonna publish it, that has no copyright notice to it and was a private printer that did it for the family member.
Okay.
So I don't believe there's any copyright problem.
Okay, and that makes it easier for you when you do get it. You could potentially upload it into an internet archive where it will be. Is it the best possible version? Maybe not, but if the option is a good version versus no version, the good version looks great.
yeah, I've been focusing on volume and speed over sheer quality, just to get the information out and think. But if I was gonna slow down a little bit, like I took multiple scans, I'd slow down with some of my own stuff and go, oh, I need this picture, or I need this page. I'd take the time to do that.
Now, the software that we use for our family trees has the ability to create an index, and not always the easiest thing. And I'm looking at this and saying, is it possible I could just print my reports, put it all together, and then scan it all and get it as a indexed version of a PDF? And that might work better than trying to just use it through the software for the family.
You
tree.
You
would,
mean like an OCR, or indexed is referring to a specific page number that you're finding in the book?
so a table of contents versus an index. It would give you a jump start on it. You'd create the searchable PDF. You'd have to work with an AI like Google's Notebook LM to say, this document has 102 pages, and I want you to create an index for every page. You'd have to teach it how to do that. So
Okay.
it's possible,
I mean, you might be able to export out a name list from the genealogy file and say, provide an index each time a person
name
in this
appears.
list is mentioned.
Yeah,
And the AI may be able to do that, so if you give it the
Yeah.
name, show me all the pages
Or
where
if
John
it's-
Smith is mentioned.
if it's mixed documents, you could say, for every page, tell me in one line what the main focus is. So this is a family group sheet for this. This is a letter for this. Then you'd be creating an index instead.
Yeah.
So,
And this is probably the sort of thing where we recommend people try to come into Humble House Library, second Tuesday of the month, or on Thursday or Saturday from 11 to 3. You might wanna call ahead and see who's gonna be there. Certain people feel more comfortable probably working through this technology than others. Phyllis is over there nodding her head.
So this whole row.
Phyllis being the expert. Phyllis knowing what my phone number is, will call me. But those are great examples, and I was talking to someone else earlier about our tool shed meeting, which is a Zoom meeting the third Wednesday of every month. And this is another great place to kind of raise the question to people, because very often we don't know the answer, but we aren't gonna go looking for the answer until someone asks us the question. Right, we're amateurs, but we love this, and so when the idea gets put in front of us, it's like, ooh, what could we do? And you know, if we don't have the opportunity to have some genealogy to waste 8 hours on, there's a technology question we could waste 8 hours on and have a lot of fun with it. So I would definitely encourage, when you get to that point, just swing on by, or like I say, call ahead and say, hey, you know, I've got a question. Is there someone in particular maybe I should talk to?
So I actually, during the presentation, put a task in my phone to work on that tonight, because I had the same question. Can I have AI summarize reports out of family tree software?
Yeah, I mean, I had to use it on a work project for, basically it was taking regulations from the European Union and summarizing what does this mean, because we didn't want to have a lawyer write abstracts of these European Union laws. And the AI was able to basically create a summary.
Yeah,
Either you could give it a few pages at a time. There was a limit to basically how long.
But what language did you start with?
We downloaded the English version.
You got the English version, okay.
Yes.
It was in legalese.
yeah.
Well, yeah, well, it was.
But
But I
legalese,
was-
but
I
American.
was- Well, not British.
Great British,
I
okay.
mean, it definitely had some British spellings of things, but I was amazed at how well ChatGPT was able to read even rather complex scientific language and condense it down. About the only thing that it did have issues with was when you had like scientific equations that it had no idea how to read.
I actually had pretty good luck with ChatGPT, but at a certain point yesterday, it said, you've done too much.
Right.
Now you need to pay. And I'm like, well, that ain't happening.
Well,
So-
a high level one, you have to take it slow. And that's what we
Yeah,
did.
I went way too fast for it.
You only do a few each day and you
Yeah.
just build the summary of these. But it was able to take thousands and thousands of pages of regulations and condense it down.
Yeah,
to-
that's a really, really good tip.
That's kind of an executive summary.
The notebook LM, and I'm gonna try to do some stuff with it, but like the notebook LM, to be able to bring in several different documents, pull in websites, you can ask it to do a summary. And what's really cool, a newer feature of Notebook LM is it will take the summarization and you can say, make me a podcast. And it will come up with a male and female voice, and it's like two people doing a podcast, and they will talk about your document. And my wife was just doing that with, for some indicator documents for, how they're doing their measurement metric indicators for performance. And she was just like, this is so cool. And she goes, I went back and I researched everyone to make sure it got it right, but it was. And that can be a really interesting thing. I haven't really tried it, but I think there's some real interesting opportunities there with some of those AI tools.
And were all of her documents typed
Digital,
digital? Okay,
They
so but not
typed.
handwritten scans like I was dealing with.
correct. These
Okay.
are all current. Most of them were spreadsheets.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it can make more sense of that than it can handwriting.
There are other AIs for doing handwriting.
There are.
which, yeah.
I tried 6 of them.
Yes.
Most of them you have to pay for. I tried
Yes.
three that were free, and I tried some trials on the other ones. And I got really mixed results, so much that I couldn't go, this one is the one that I'd steer anyone to. I'd rather argue with
Family
Notebook
Search
LM.
Has been developing their own for handwritten documents, because as you mentioned earlier, Family Search has digitized a huge volume of rolls of microfilm, things like county record books.
Yeah, the
And it's
probates.
using an AI to slowly but surely.
Yeah, the experimental area of Family Search uses that AI, and if you go in, then looking for that, narrowing it down by county and stuff, that is a treasure trove of information. Yeah, 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 probate and land, those, it's good for that. Sometimes court cases.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Lisa.
So, again, I want to thank you, Lisa. Again, this is sort of that vibrant community that I've been talking about, and I really had wanted, to encourage people that we all have our one piece of expertise where we're the smartest person in the room. It's great to be able to bring together and share that with one another. So thank you again. It was great. I appreciate it. For members, if you'd like to join the board meeting, you can email us and ask about the link for the board meeting, which is on Tuesday. We have the tool shed on Wednesday night. Again, look at the calendar. If you want to join us, that'd be great. We can follow up with questions here or anything else you've got going. We are looking for someone to do our February presentation. So if you have some ideas and such, and I got Gabby's text message during the meeting, let me know. We can definitely use some help with that. Thank you to everyone on Zoom, and thank you everyone here. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Sometimes.
Wow.